Hey, welcome to another edition of the Gentleman Grachowski Show. I'm Larry, and I'm your host. TVHams.com is the official website of the Gentleman Grachowski Show. Everything you need to find out about TV Hams is right there, and the Gentleman Grachowski Show. One spot, TVHams.com, all the social media right at your fingertips. My guest today is Richard Franklin. He's an English photographer living in the Hollywood Hills, in the Hollywood Nights. He's known for both glamour and artistic photographer. That's what he's known for. And we're going to find out more about him right here. Richard, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Nice to speak to you. Nice to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for stopping by. I know, I've been looking at a lot of your photography, and you got some great work. You got great, the way you present the picture is outstanding, and I'm definitely excited to talk to you about really what goes into the mind of a photographer and how they set up a shot and this and that. But can you tell us about you came from England, right?
I grew up in London, which was a wonderful city to grow up in and very wonderful culturally. And the only thing that sucks about London was the weather. And so my parents actually immigrated to America in 1980. So I came with them, and I lived in Miami and I lived in New York, and then I ended up in 1990 and living in LA, and I guess I must like it because I've stayed here ever since.
I'm sure the weather has something to do with living there, right?
It does. I mean, I agonize. I miss England. There's a lot of wonderful things about England that I really do have in my heart, like anybody would from where they grew up. But I hate going back for the weather. And of course, whatever I'd be going back to isn't the same as what I left. And so it's just, seeking for memories and, like a bit of a ghost in your town, and everything's changed. But England is a nice place, and English people are nice, and I miss it. I find America actually strange. I find America, a difficult place right now because it seems a very unhappy country. But the weather, I live in LA for the weather. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I can imagine there's definitely sunshine, and I think it's cloudy or rains very seldom over there.
Yeah, and I am affected by weather. I mean, it's no question. My mood is much better, in a sunny place. So I'm probably right that I'm here. And now, it's a good creative town.
Now, Richard, when you came here to America, what was the biggest culture shock to you from England? Is there anything specifically that jumped out at you, like, wow, this is different than what I grew up with? Because you were a little older in life, right? You weren't a child, right?
Something you might not know, but in 1989, after living here for 9 years, I started the largest program in America on putting the teaching of values, morals, character back into the American school system as the #1 thing in your curriculum. Because I came across things here in America that I had never come across in my entire life in England. I think that the biggest problem America has today, and has consistently had, is actually values. Good people don't do bad things. And character and values don't come out of nowhere. And so, for example, I used to be horrified that, growing up in England, I never knew anybody who took drugs. I never knew anybody who was mugged or murdered or shot. I never knew anybody who was raped. I never knew anybody who was molested. I hardly ever knew anybody who was divorced. And I was living in a major capital city. And so, in my opinion, if one city, if one country doesn't do things that another country does, then it interests me that it's not just a sort of a given that that's the way we are. There's something, I think, very seriously wrong with the American psyche and the acceptance of things that are unacceptable.
Well, you said the word values, and I think in America, especially the younger people now, we value the wrong thing. I think a lot of people in America over the years, I don't want to blame it all on millennials because people have been screwing up this country for years. But you're right, values, and they value the wrong thing. Back in the 80s, it might have been money or power or something along those lines, And now we glamour just Facebook likes and stuff like that, right? Isn't there those are some weird things that the people are really valuing these days?
Well, I think it's worse than what you say. I think that power and money are givens at all times. And I think it's, when I was working in New York in the 80s, and it was no different from what it is now. I don't think that's changed so much. But I think in general, what's happened is that you have a country in which people are a sort of assumed that character comes somewhere out of the thin air, and it doesn't. I think you've got a country that was very badly founded. We all, I think, know that, and we haven't come to terms with that. And I also think it's become a very frivolous country, because at the end of the day, to some extent, we are what we spend our time doing. And I think that the people have very frivolous choices, and then they wonder afterwards why they're not further ahead. So in other words, I would say that it's a country out of balance. People spend too much time listening to music, too much time watching sports, too much time watching things that actually make other people rich, but actually make them poorer. Because, for example, with Asian culture, or I'm Jewish, is that I think when you've got parents who say, no, you're not going to do this, or no, you're going to study, and you've got to go to get ahead, etc., that has a very big influence on the ultimate outcome of how people behave and how people succeed. And I think that with the collapse of the family in America, that you've got a situation where people really aren't learning, the skills that they could learn if they chose to spend their time differently.
Richard, I agree with you 100% on that. And you know what? That's something we have to reach in, inside here and really, in the next several years, really put it together.
Well, I'll just say this, because I know it's not the purpose of your show, but since you asked me, and deep down, I'm quite a serious guy, is that the thing is this, that if you ask, the biggest thing that you should be doing, in my opinion, in America, is to put the teaching of values in your school system as the number one thing, because nothing else matters.
Exactly. I would have rather had values taught to me than trigonometry. That's for certain. Definitely growing up, and I definitely.
Who cares if we're successful, if we're rotten people? Who cares? There's something wrong with us. Who cares if you're a rich society and you've got children going to school armed with a weapon to kill their fellow students or their teachers? It's sick.
I agree with you. I just wish we can agree. The politicians who have got some power can't agree on a way to put it together. But hey, Richard, let's turn the page a little bit. And you brought together a video clip here of some of your work.
Oh, okay. That's a good-looking dude.
All right, Richard, changed life by unleashing the power of the camera. Tell us about that. Yes. That looked very exciting, and that definitely, it's almost speechless.
I think, something, we use this, interesting that we use this word shooting when you say I shot a picture. I actually think a camera is a bit more powerful in some ways than a gun, because a gun, you've only got a couple of things you can do. You either threaten somebody or you shoot them. But with a camera, you can do amazing things. You can uplift people, you can give immortality, you can create things absolutely out of nothing and really feel empowered that you've done that, and it sort of lasts forever. So I think it's a very, very powerful thing if handled, and it has to be handled very carefully. So I try to do clever things with a camera that just make me feel, that I've accomplished something. It gives you a very nice feeling when you feel that you've done something elevated and cool and fun and given people pleasure. It's a powerful thing.
Now, some of the photography we're looking at right now is you labeled cosmic. Can you tell us
Yeah.
about that? What goes into shooting those images?
Well, I've been shooting girls for many years, and that's what I like to shoot, whether it was artistic or whether it was glamour. And then I had adopted a child. I had a foster child, actually. Sorry, and I had looked after his mother, who was mentally ill for many, many years. And then I had the foster child, and then the wicked DCFS system in America gave the child back to his mother. And I was so upset that for a year I refused to see anybody. I mean, I was really in a very bad state indeed. And so I retreated to my studio, wouldn't see anybody, and began to work on abstracts. And then out of that work, I ended up with this vast body of work, which was totally unexpected to me, which is what I call cosmic photography, abstract visions of outer space. And it's an odd thing, because it was the sort of catharsis for losing my child. It was the worst thing that could have happened to a person. And yet the work is like, it's not that I had any great interest in outer space, but I found that my mind, in the times when I was functional and could do things, began to just say, I'm not going to see people, therefore what else can I do? So I went in that direction, and it's been a tremendous pleasure. It's like I managed to create things which I could never believe that, were inside of me.
So that cosmic photography is kind of maybe some therapy for you, right? Kind of getting you over the...
Well, I think that's absolutely true. I think very often you'll find artists, I remember people used to say to me, well, what's the next direction you're going in? And I said, well, I haven't got another direction. And I didn't have anything in my head. And it was only the loss of my child that, somehow kicked me in another direction. I mean, totally unexpected.
Exactly. Now, when you talk about photography, and in one of your bios, you mentioned that people talk about photography coming from the eye. You think it comes from elsewhere. Tell us about your theory on photography.
Well, it's not really a theory. It's that I think that people use words very lightly without thinking about them. The eye has no thought process in it. It's just a way in which information reaches your brain. So when people say, I love you from my heart, heart also is an organ that just pumps blood. The truth is that everything in our life comes from our brain. And therefore, photography for me is entirely an intellectual process. It's also a reflection of your taste, your values, your upbringing, your cultural literacy. And it's nothing to do with your eye at all.
Yeah, well...
But we say these things without challenging them. I mean, it's not that I understand what I'm saying. That I know, but it's such an easy thing that people say, well, it's your eye. But I mean, no, it's what your brain processes, out of which the information that receives through the eyes. The eyes have no capacity to think. So I think it's an intellectual thing. I think it's a reflection of your taste and your interests. Yes.
And is that kind of what got you involved in photography in the first place? Because I know you said you came to photography a little later in life, right?
I did. I think that I've done a lot of things. I've fought for a lot of causes, like I was mentioning to you. I did a very big program on values. I did a lot of other things. And then I said, what can I do to just please myself, whether it's with people, without people, inside, outside, home or abroad, night or day? And photography seemed to fit that bill. And also I could get instant results. I actually came to Hollywood to do movies. And then I realized that temperamentally, I wasn't suited to movies because it requires all the things that I don't really have, which is collaboration with other people, depending on other people, depending on financiers and critics and stars and rewrites and putting all those elements together. Whereas I found in a camera, you could get this instant satisfaction. And obviously digital's increased that. And so I find it really suits me to be able to get instant results.
And Richard, can you tell us a little bit more of your artistic photography?
Well, it's divided into two categories. One is what I call figurative, which is artistic photography of women done in ways that people have not actually done before. Because one of the things that's very important to me is to try and aim very high to do clever things, if you like, but without anything in Photoshop. So we live in an age where people, I think, are a little bit mentally lazy, and they say, well, I'll just fix it in post. And I'll fix it in editing. Whereas I go in another direction. I say, well, I'm not going to create any effects through a computer. And so the funny thing is, at the end of the day, my stuff ends up more complex than if you did it in a computer. Because my brain is forced to have to think how to do things without a computer. So I've developed a style which some people call paintography, where things can look like painting straight out of the camera.
And that is what I think kind of appeals to, you know, to me, the appeals to the photography you do is the fact that it has definitely a look that doesn't look like it's a computer. You know, it just looks like something really unique. And it goes to show you. I know you talked about you did some work like with gladiators, Egyptian divas, ninja warrior. You know, those are some of the topics of some of the artwork you've done. And can you tell us about really what it's like to get the subject? I guess it would be what you'd call the person, right? In the photography, you know, the model.
The things you're showing there come from what I call my figurative collection. So, for example, I'm looking at a ballet picture there. That was actually one of the hardest shoots that I ever did, not because technically it was hard, but because I'm very concept driven. So I think, what can I do with ballet that you've never seen? So it took me a very long time to come up with this particular concept. But I think that I was always into, I guess, first of all, finding something that nobody's ever done, something that's very high concept, like ballet is a high concept, and doing it in a way in which you think about it and you think, what you start off with saying, I'm not going to do anything that looks like anything anybody's ever done. And so you spend maybe months thinking about how I would do that. In this particular case, there's a famous ballet movie called The Red Shoes. Anybody who's a ballerina would have seen that movie, The Red Shoes. It's a classic of the cinema. So I had a technique when I was shooting glamour girls in which I could shoot a glamour girl with and turn her blue, for example. But if she was wearing a red bikini, the bikini would still stay red. So I applied this idea to a ballet shoot where if you look at other pictures in it, her ballet shoes are red. Everything about her that she's wearing is red, including her hair and makeup, but nevertheless, she's blue. And I called it Red Shoe Variations. And so I was using a sort of a classical elevated theme to do something in a medium that I respect, which everybody should, was the skill of ballet and the art form, but do it in a way that you haven't seen and without a computer.
Now we also have some more of your figurative photography here. Let's show some of that because, like I said, it's just unbelievable, and it's all done without Photoshop. That's
nothing. This was done by my pool. This was actually my girlfriend at the time. It's a black girl, and this is an interesting shoot because a lot of the things I try to do is to try and give dignity to an idea. So the average person looking at this, I call it geisha. So people don't challenge that. They think, oh, lovely Japanese geisha. To a Japanese person, this would be crazy. She's first of all wearing, a bathrobe, and she's wearing my Adidas socks. She's wearing my makeup artist's MC Hammer pants. And yet you have this feeling of elegance, and you have this feeling, in other words, I'm very mischievous. I know you have a comedy show. I mean, I have a silly sense of humor, and I use it in my pictures. I'm very irreverent. I'm taking something iconic and respectful like a geisha and trying to give you the essence of dignity, but at the same time having my own mischief and mayhem and doing it in a way that's completely nuts.
It definitely looks.
And people look at that and they think, what beautiful Japanese footwear, and what beautiful Japanese traditional something, where of course it's ridiculous. It's nothing to do with that at all. So the trick is to make the essence of something without being literal.
We're sitting here with Richard Franklin. He's a photographer, was born in London and lives in Hollywood Hills now. And you've got a couple websites, richardfranklinphotography.com, rfphotoarts.com, and also rfmodelingphotography.com.
It's RF model photography, not modeling.
Oh.
RF model.
Okay, my fault.
RF model photography, yeah. That's my Glamour site.
And with all these pictures, especially the ones that we're looking at right now, the figurative, these are just some. I love the colors. I like how they seem to pop with when you look at it. We can watch, see some more of them here. One of the things I think if I was going to give advice to anybody who's into photography, I don't think it's difficult to shoot. It's difficult to be original, and you want to strive to be different and be original if you can.
And that requires thought. So, for example, I stand for huge amounts of color. So that's well known. In my glamour work, I was well known for shooting black girls and, and then Hispanic and Asian before I actually really was shooting white girls. And so I knew what I liked. I liked the type of women I liked and the style I liked. These type of things that you're looking at here are very high concept. That's a sort of ancient Greek idea. And to do that without any Photoshop, trust me, that wasn't an easy thing to do. But those are the challenges that I enjoy. So I enjoy dancing from very sexy glamour to very high concept artistic, and then to abstract, and then back again. So it keeps me feeling fresh, if you like.
Keeps you feeling fresh.
I mean, to give you an idea, I did an artistic shoot the other week. It's the first time I'd done one in 6 years. I mean, I'd finished all that work. I've got a nice book I put to bed on that, and I really didn't think about it anymore. And but I just came back and did one, and it was actually quite successful, and I was surprised. But there's only so much good stuff that one can do without feeling the need that you should move on to the next thing to keep fresh.
Yeah, I understand. And something else that you do is you got a category you call Glamour. And can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that's what you started off with. You said
I did,
right?
Well, Glamour to me is, I guess if you like, for a shorthand would be Playboy without the nudity. Very sexy girls, but the difference is that I don't look for nudity, in my pictures. So it's all fun, sexy stuff. I work with exhibitionists primarily, video vixens, and all sorts of girls who just want to show off, and that's fun for me. I'm not a fashion shooter. I'm somebody who does, I guess, the type of thing that a lot of girls now are very successful with on Instagram and on OnlyFans, which is, a certain type of woman just wants to be shown at her best, which is more power to them. I'm in favor of that. So a studio shooter like myself, would try and take beautiful girls like this and, try and give them the best that I can. And what they get out of it is, work and Instagram and more fans. And, right now we're seeing a tremendous empowerment for women to be able to earn an income, in various ways without having to depend on men, because they certainly can't depend on men. And so I think it's a very good idea that women are empowered, if you like, through their physicality. I'm not suggesting that's the only way that people should, but for those type of women who want to and are able to, it's a tremendous liberation now of being able to earn income without having to do some of the things that one might have had to have done in the past, such as like being strippers.
I agree. Now, Richard, what's cool is we're looking at these pictures here, and one thing that you could share with us is that this is done in your home studio, and you have a unique home studio. Can you tell us about that?
When I came into my house, my house was 2 levels and a loft, and now it's 8 levels. It's the most levels of any house in Los Angeles. And it's really a reflection of a man who got obsessed in a healthy way. I think it's good. I think one of the things that's sad about a lot of Americans that I meet, or any human being, is if you don't have a passion, and you don't have a hobby, and you don't have interests that are outside of your normal, whatever it is, daily life. And so I was a guy who got the bug of photography, and I started off as an interest, and it became a passion, then it became an obsession, then it became an addiction. And for me, all I want is space to create. So I didn't want to get up in the morning and go to a studio. So I began to see how much planning I could get to just get different studio levels within my own house, so I didn't have to go anywhere. And I think that's been a very big, important thing for me. I had all the conditions by which I could feel comfortable in shooting night or day when the mood was, right. And so, yeah, it's become quite a famous house because of all the levels, but it's really a serious studio. All the work that I've done is taken a great deal of time and effort and seriousness. But if you're going to be really good, you better be obsessed to sort of, carry it just as far as you can. And for me, backgrounds are what's important. So in order to have backgrounds, full backgrounds, you want to really find imaginative ways of doing that. Most people couldn't do that.
Exactly. And what's actually unique about this is that you know, you can't tell it's done in the same place. Every shot we're looking at here looks like totally
Yeah.
a different day, a different time, a different part of the country, and it's all
Well, I
done
did
in
a lot of,
time.
I done most of my stuff I've done here, but it's like, I don't want people to think that it's been easy. Everything that I've done required sacrifice. It required dedication. It required obsession, and that, I couldn't be stopped. I think that but it was a very healthy addiction. There are addictions that are dreadful and there are addictions that are wonderful for you. I think it redeemed my life. It made me feel better, this addiction. The addiction that you could create something out of absolutely nothing was somehow a feeling that it could give you that was so powerfully and so pleasing that it gave me a great deal of meaning to my life. And therefore I just constantly never lost focus on, what's the next background, what's the next clever thing I could do, what's different from what I've done before. And that's been important for me.
And Richard, do you have like a big closet or a big box full of props that all these models are using, or they bring their own props?
No, I don't. I do know photographers who are, serious glamour photographers who have rooms full of stuff. I wasn't that kind of a guy. I have a suitcase that, has filled up with different bikinis and things. Most of them, just things that I bought at different times that I thought might look good. When I have a girl comes to shoot with me, I don't tell them what to do or what to wear. People come with outfits, and then sometimes I like them. Sometimes I mix and match what I have with what they have. And sometimes I say, I think this would look really good on you. And they agree with me. I don't force anything on anybody, but it's always useful for a photographer to have some things as a choice whenever you're working with a model.
And when you're working with a model, Richard, what is the one thing that you have to portray as a photographer, the trust? How do you portray the trust that you have to that model? Because they have to trust you in order to be in front of the camera, right?
That's true. But for me, I have a name, and people usually who come to shoot with me already have seen my work. They've seen articles on me, and they come already knowing, I think, that I've accomplished a certain amount of stuff, and they come wanting, if you like, to live up to the level of other things that I've done. I don't really, they're a bit more intimidated by me than I am by them, in the sense that I already have a reputation in this area. So I've never in my entire career, I don't think that's Kim Kardashian, by the way, at the very beginning of her career. I don't think I've ever had an argument with a model in my entire career, because I never ask anybody to do anything. And I think part of trust is just to be nice and pleasant and say to people, what would you like to do? I don't tell people what they have to do. I've never been a control freak. I'm not interested in any form of control in any way at all. I just want to have fun and want you to feel that you can empower yourself to be the best that you can be and have the most fun that you can have.
And you said that was a photo of Kim Kardashian, huh?
Yeah, the one with the dog. Yeah, that was. Yeah. I shot her early in her career. I had no idea who she was. I don't really watch the media very much, so I hadn't a clue who she was. But 17 people turned up telling me what to do and how to shoot her. But I did about 4 sets, different shoots with her. But she was actually very pleasant. I don't usually do that type of work. I'm not for hire to shoot people who have a whole team of people who come around telling me what to do. I'm not very good at that.
Right. And the biggest thing that you can give any advice to people that want to get into photography, is there something you can, like I said, if I wanted to start photography tomorrow, what advice would you give me?
Well, the first thing is you have to decide what's really the thing that turns you on. I clearly liked women. If you're gay, you should probably be shooting boys. If you're into landscapes, great, shoot landscapes if you love animals. But I think that what you want to try and do is gradually discover something original about what you do that other people don't do. And for me, that's a very big deal for me. I think that the worst thing for me is if I felt that I was just look like everybody else's work. So I tried deliberately to have my own type of signature with the type of girls that I shoot, the type of concepts that I take on, the color that I use, the tricks that I like to have in the background. And those things require thought. I do everything without assistance. I do everything without Photoshop. So I also like hard work. I don't like to take it easy. The challenge for me is not being helped. And if you like, having all the odds against me. I mean, if you look at that shot that you've got up there right now, that is an extremely complicated shot that I defy most people to be able to understand how to do, because the exposure for a woman in the middle of the night is a different exposure from the city background at a very long distance away. That's a shot on my roof in the Hollywood Hills here. And what I love about that shoot is that, you know, it almost looks like she's two-dimensional. Right. So people would think automatically, oh, he must have put in the background with Photoshop. But no, it's just hard work working out how to do that effect without using Photoshop. And that's my turn on.
Yeah, and then definitely, I mean, it looks great, you know, unique, great, whatever word you want to, you know, explore, you know, you want to use to describe it. And it, you know what, you feel something really, as I'm looking at that picture, something, you know, like an exciting night, you know, a calm night, you know, just the background with the, you know, is it Hollywood?
I do
or
love
whatever?
it. You do, you know, photography has a certain amount of, you know, it has a great deal of pleasure in seeing an image that you did successfully. It has a certain amount of, strangely enough, of sadness. That was my girlfriend at the time. And so you look at these things and you have a memory in that type of context. And then, of course, you're catching people sometimes at the very best time of their life, you know, and people sometimes decline. Some people get in, you know, go in a bad direction, and some people just move on to other things. It's a young person's game. I mean, I'm shooting people usually between about 18 and 24, when they really are more, you know, less spoiled than perhaps, or less jaded than when they get to about 27 or 28, which I think the camera sees.
Right.
And,
you know
sorry.
So you know what else I like about that shot is that you could see the details in the white. White's kind of one of those colors, right? That's just hard to see details in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated shoot, and I used a lot of lights to do it. And she was actually wearing my what I wear in the house. I pad around my house usually in linen, and white linen, and white shirt and white pants, because that's a sort of a look that suits me, and I can go out, or I can work, and I can fall asleep, or I can hang out, and it's okay, you know. It makes life easier. But she was actually wearing my clothes. I like girls, you know, wearing man's clothes. I like models wearing men's clothes also sometimes. You know, it looks like a girl in a man's shirt is cute.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely has got a nice appeal to it. I was going to say that, especially when it's your shirt.
Well, that's what, you know. Anything that's appropriate at the time. You know, if you think what the other choices were, you know, it was just a choice, and it turned out nice. You know, it could have been another choice. It could have been in a bikini or something else. You know, it's just very random. This one here that you've got up is one of the interesting guys that people should look at. Or I don't know if you've come across it, is a thing called the Black Tape Project. And that's become a very, very well-known art form done by a friend of mine in Miami called Joel Alvarez. And he became the world's #1 guy in literally taping women with tape. Nowadays, he does it with amazing decorations. And I thought when I first saw it, it was the sexiest thing I had seen, literally, since anything that I'd seen in Playboy. I used to tell him that he developed the sexiest technique since nudity. And so Black Tape Project, your audience maybe should look at. It's very sexy stuff. And this was very early days. It's not very sophisticated, but it was one of the first taping shoots that I did. And it's always cool when you can find a new angle to shoot a model who feels empowered with a direction that's just something different from what they normally might do.
I agree. Okay, Richard, thank you for stopping by. RichardFranklinPhotography.com, RFPhotoArts.com, and RFModelPhotography.com. I got it right that time, Richard.
Yeah, that's fine.
I thank you for stopping by the show today. I appreciate it, and keep up the good work. Like I said, anytime you can sit there and have your passion and you know, benefit from it, that's a good thing. You talked about photography and what you find, you take pictures of what you really enjoy. I think most of my photography, if I started a photography studio, would be but taking picture of fast food and like soda. I think that's all I would be taking pictures of. That I think that's what I seem to enjoy these days, a little bit too much, fast food and soda. So, but anyways, Richard, thank you.
Women to it too.
All right, Richard, thanks for stopping by today.
All right, my pleasure. Good luck to you, and thank you.
Thank you. This is the Gentleman Gurchowski Show. We'll be back next week. Have a good one.